My fiancée tried to justify cheating by suggesting an open relationship, so I exposed her lies and walked away. Now she's begging to come back. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and until recently, I thought my life was pretty well put together. I was engaged to my fiancé of 6 years, and while our relationship wasn't perfect, I figured we were working toward a future together. I was wrong. The last few months have been a train wreck, and looking back, I'm not even sure how I put up with her entitlement and manipulation for as long as I did. When I first met her, she seemed like the kind of person who had her life together. She was smart, confident, and outgoing. Everything I thought I wanted in a partner. For the first couple of years, things were good. She had her quirks, sure, but who doesn't? It was easy to overlook the little things because I thought we were building something solid. One of the first signs I should have paid attention to was the way she always made everything about herself. At first, I thought it was just her being passionate or having a strong personality. If I told her about something good that happened to me, like getting a promotion or hitting a personal goal, she'd somehow turn the conversation back to her. It was always, "That's great, but let me tell you what I've been doing." It got to the point where I stopped sharing as much because I knew she'd either dismiss it or try to one-up me. The same thing happened with wedding planning. When we got engaged, I assumed we'd work together to plan something that reflected both of us. Instead, she took over completely. She wanted an over-the-top wedding, a fancy venue, designer outfits, expensive catering, the works. I didn't mind spending money on a nice wedding, but it felt like she was planning something to impress other people, not celebrate our relationship. When I brought up the budget and suggested we scale back, she got defensive and said I was being cheap. Then she pulled the "if you really loved me" card and said I should want to give her the wedding of her dreams. It felt like a slap in the face because I'd been covering most of our expenses for years. She wasn't contributing much financially, but she had no problem spending my money. That wasn't even the worst part. She tried to justify her lack of contribution by saying she had sacrificed her career for our relationship. She loved to bring this up during arguments, claiming she'd put her dreams on hold to support me. It sounded noble until you looked at the facts. She'd bounced between jobs for years, quitting whenever something didn't interest her. Meanwhile, I was working full-time, covering rent, bills, and anything else that came up. The breaking point came during a dinner with friends. She started talking about how much she'd given up for our relationship, painting herself as this selfless partner who'd done everything for me. I couldn't hold my tongue. I said, "It's funny you bring that up because I've been covering all the rent and utilities while you figured out what you wanted to do. That was supposed to be temporary, remember?" The table went silent, and she looked like she wanted to crawl under it. After that, she stopped using the sacrifice excuse as much, but it was clear she resented me for calling her out. Things took a turn when she brought up the idea of an open relationship. This came out of nowhere. One night, we were having dinner, and she casually said, "Have you ever thought about an open relationship?" I thought she was joking. When I realized she wasn't, I asked her where this was coming from. She said something vague about wanting to keep things fresh and explore new experiences. She claimed it wasn't about anyone specific, just an idea she'd been thinking about. I didn't buy it, but I told her I needed time to process. Something about the timing felt off. We hadn't been in a good place for months, and now she wanted to open the relationship? I decided to dig a little deeper. I ended up going through her phone. I'm not proud of it, but I had a feeling she wasn't being honest. Sure enough, there were texts with some guy from her gym. They weren't outright explicit, but it was clear they'd been meeting up behind my back. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to see how far she'd take this. A few days later, she brought up the open relationship idea again. This time I said, "Sure, let's try it." Her face lit up, and I could tell she thought she'd won. Then I added, "But it has to go both ways. Full transparency, no secrets, no exceptions." She hesitated, but eventually agreed. That's when the real game started. She immediately laid out a bunch of rules. No dating anyone we knew, no overnight stays, no falling in love. She said it was to protect our relationship, but it was obvious she wanted to control the situation. I said fine, but I added my own rule. We had to share everything, texts, plans, everything. She didn't like that, but she agreed. Within days, she was out on her first date with gym guy. She came back acting like everything was normal, but when I mentioned I had plans to grab coffee with an old friend, a woman I briefly dated years ago, she lost it. "That's not fair," she said. "You already have history with her. It's different. So it's okay for you to see someone you've been texting behind my back, but I can't catch up with an old friend." I asked. She stormed off, accusing me of trying to ruin the open relationship. It didn't stop there. She started monitoring my plans, demanding to know who I was seeing and when. But when I asked her the same questions, she got defensive and said I was being controlling. One night, she came home late and tried to sneak past me. I asked her where she'd been, and she said she'd been out with friends. Her phone buzzed, and I saw a gym guy's name pop up. I asked her again, and she got angry, saying I was invading her privacy. "You agreed to transparency," I said. "If you can't be honest, what's the point?" She started crying, saying I was making this harder than it needed to be. That's when I realized she'd never intended for this to be fair. She wanted the freedom to do whatever she wanted while keeping me on a leash. I told her I was done. The open relationship, the engagement, all of it. She started begging, saying we could work it out, but I didn't believe her. I packed a bag and left that night. Her family got involved after the breakup, accusing me of abandoning her and throwing away 6 years. I told them the truth. She wanted an open relationship so she could cheat guilt-free. I wasn't going to stick around for that. Some of them sided with me, but others doubled down, saying I should have been more understanding. It didn't matter. I was done letting her manipulate me. It's been a few months since the breakup, and I feel like a weight's been lifted. I've reconnected with friends, started new hobbies, and even dipped my toes into dating again. For the first time in years, I feel like I can focus on myself without constantly being dragged down. The best part, gym guy dumped her shortly after I left. She tried to reach out, saying she'd made a mistake and wanted to talk. I didn't respond. Looking back, I wish I'd left sooner. But at least now I know what I'm worth, and I'll never settle for less again. After I moved out, the reality of everything started to sink in. At first, it felt surreal, like I was walking away from not just her but an entire life we'd built together. The apartment we'd shared, the plans we'd made, even the stupid little routines like ordering takeout on Friday nights. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of that life was built around her terms and her needs. When I started telling people about the breakup, the reactions were mixed. My closest friends were supportive and said they'd seen this coming for a while. One of them even admitted they'd been biting their tongue because they didn't want to overstep, but they never understood what I saw in her. On the other hand, her friends and family wouldn't leave me alone. Her mom called me at least 3 times in the first week, leaving messages that started out polite and ended in guilt trips. "I know she's not perfect, but you were supposed to be her partner," she said in one voicemail. "She's devastated and you're just walking away?" It pissed me off. I wasn't the one who cheated. I wasn't the one who tried to twist the relationship into something selfish and one-sided. But they couldn't or wouldn't see that. Then there was the fallout with mutual friends. A couple of them tried to stay neutral, but one guy, let's call him Tim, went full white knight on her behalf. He texted me out of the blue saying, "I can't believe you'd abandon her like this after everything she's done for you." I lost it. I replied, "Everything she's done for me? Like what? Spending my money, lying to my face, and cheating with her gym buddy. If you think that's love, good luck to you." Tim backed off after that, but the whole thing left a sour taste in my mouth. It was like people were so caught up in her sob story that they didn't care about what actually happened. The most surprising part was how much better I felt as the weeks went on. Once the dust settled, I realized how much of myself I'd been suppressing to keep her happy. I started doing things I'd put on hold. Hiking, playing guitar, even just going out with friends without having to justify it. It felt like I was rediscovering who I was before her. One day, I ran into an old coworker who'd moved to a different city. We grabbed coffee and ended up talking for hours. She told me about how she'd left a toxic job and started her own business. It was inspiring, and it reminded me that life didn't have to revolve around pleasing someone else. Around this time, I also found out through the grapevine that gym guy had dumped my ex. Apparently, he wasn't interested in anything serious, and she'd been blindsided. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a little satisfaction hearing that. She'd bet everything on him, and it backfired. She tried reaching out again, sending me a long email about how she'd made mistakes and wanted to talk. She said she was willing to go to therapy, to work on herself, to do whatever it took to fix things. But I didn't reply. Some people might say that was harsh, but I saw it for what it was, another attempt to control the narrative. She didn't miss me. She missed the security I provided, the steady paycheck, the emotional support, the guy who would always be there no matter how much she took me for granted. The thing is, walking away wasn't just about ending the relationship. It was about setting a standard for how I wanted to be treated. I realized that staying with her, even if she did change, would mean compromising that standard. And I wasn't willing to do that anymore. Now, a few months later, I'm in a completely different headspace. I've started dating someone new, not seriously, just taking things slow. But the difference is night and day. This person actually listens, supports my goals, and treats me like an equal. It's refreshing, and it reminds me of what a healthy relationship should feel like. Looking back, I'm grateful for everything that happened, even if it was messy and painful. It taught me to recognize red flags, to stand up for myself, and to never settle for less than I deserve. The truth is, I'm happier now than I've been in years. And for the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely excited about the future.